Welcome back to Preps Today with John Millea. John's going to tell us about his vacation. John goes a lot of interesting places. Always has good stories when he comes back. We're going to talk about some milestones. We're going to talk about some high-scoring hoops. We're going to thank a ref as always, and as always, unveil John and the MSHSL's most valuable teammate. John, how was the vacation?
Yeah, Jim, fantastic. As the only place my wife and I go anymore is we fly into San Francisco, because that's where our grandkids are, about an hour out of there in Napa. So we got home. We're talking, what day is it? Wednesday? It's Wednesday. So we got home Tuesday night really late. Flight from San Francisco was delayed a little bit, but what's new? Yeah, we had a great time. I don't like traffic in the Bay Area. I'll talk about that in a minute. But two of our three kids now live in Northern California, a couple hours apart. One of them likes her parents enough that she still lives in Minnesota. But those grandkids are out there, so we generally after the prep bowl, I take some time off, and if we can get out there, we do. So we're out there for a week with a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So you can imagine the mayhem and chaos at that house. We're exhausted by the time we get home. But at the grandkids' house, there's a guest room. That's where we stay. Our other son is outside of Sacramento, a couple hours away. Drove our rental car up there to, if anybody's familiar with the quaint little town of Oroville, California, we spent a day there. That's it's not really in the mountains, but it's kind of in the foothills, and really cool little town. And there was one new thing this year. Some close friends of ours from Iowa rented an Airbnb in Sonoma for a few days while we were there. And this wasn't some little suburban house. This was a big historic, basically a mansion. I don't know what it cost, but it wasn't cheap. I think they had 12 people staying in that Airbnb, which had a guest house. And it was about 20 minutes from our son's house in Napa. So spent a couple evenings at the party house in Sonoma and really enjoyed it. It was all Midwesterners hanging out in wine country. Really fun. Now, the worst part of the whole deal, traveling, getting there. We flew from Minneapolis to San Francisco. It was delayed for two reasons. Our flight crew was delayed in arriving at MSP. That happens. And then it was that cold, it was a week ago, really when the cold really swept in and it was super windy and the temperatures. We thought maybe we'd get out of here before that hit, but we had to wait to de-ice the plane. They had to wait for the temperature to drop below a certain level before the de-icing crews can get going. I think we sat on the tarmac for 2 hours, Jim.
Oh, I hate
trying
that.
to get out of here. Oh, it was brutal. They shut off the engines to conserve fuel. They kept the AC moving, but yeah, just to sit out there for 2 hours. Now, this was Delta. We really like Delta. They've got live TV. They've got movies. You can entertain yourself. It wasn't the worst thing, but we got out. We got out of here. And we landed in San Francisco way late. We're way late, but that's okay. Our son's tracking our flight. So we rent a car. It's, if you can get from the San Francisco airport to Napa in an hour and a half, you're doing pretty good. So this was not that situation. The traffic, I don't know if it was wrecks on the freeways or what, but instead of an hour and a half, which would be fine, it was close to 3 hours to get to their house. So we were late for dinner. That's okay. Grandkids were still up. And after that, though, I should never complain about traffic in the Twin Cities again. It was miserable, but we made it. Northern California, wine country. It's cool, but there's no place like home. We were thrilled to get back home. And now I'm all set, jumping back into the high school winter sports scene. And I'm going to be putting a few miles on the car. I've got some things coming up that I'm excited about. All we need are, not terrible weather and dry roads, and away we go.
I had a friend who worked in both LA and in the Bay Area, and he said that while both traffic in both places is terrible, the difference is in LA, you can usually find a way. There's usually another route. There's a side street. Right. Bay Area, there's so much water and so much traffic. If you're stuck, you're stuck.
You are. And, it's basically two big bridges, the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate, and our normal route, which we took yesterday to drive back to the airport, Over the Bay Bridge. It's beautiful, kind of basically through downtown Sacramento. It's all on an interstate. But when we landed, the GPS app was telling us don't take the Bay Bridge. So I don't know what was going on over there. We ended up driving across the Golden Gate, and it wasn't dark yet. We've done that before, and that's as spectacular as it gets. But then we got into Marin County, and we're on a freeway, but the GPS is alerting me you got to get off this freeway. There's a big wreck up ahead, and I'm seeing all the red on the map. So we ended up driving through a couple of little towns with stoplights at every street, and it just took forever. And finally, we got out there. But yeah, it's because of all that water. It's not as simple as even here. It's flat basically.
Yep.
Get off the road, take a back road, take side streets. You can't do that out there. So it's either where we're going anyway, it's one bridge or the other. And usually neither one is great. Now, yesterday, driving to the airport, it was about an hour and a half. It was about as smooth as it gets. No problem. Get the rental car returned, check a bag. Flight was delayed slightly, but not bad. So overall, we saw a little bit of everything.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you got out there. I know the traffic can be crazy, but man, it's beautiful out there.
It really is. And it's interesting too, this time of year. Yeah, the highs were in the 60s and the lows were in the 40s basically. But yesterday morning, everybody's up early. Son and daughter-in-law are going to work, dropping the kids off at kindergarten and preschool. And so we give everybody hugs goodbye because we're going to head to the airport in a few hours. I decided to go pick up some breakfast for my wife, and I'm just going to go to McDonald's a couple miles away. So our rental car was parked in their driveway, and by golly, I had to scrape the windshield and the back window because there was frost on it, which they're not used to there. That was cold. It would have been nothing here. In fact, I didn't really have to scrape it. I just turned on the defrosters, got the wipers going, and it was pretty good, pretty quick. But that's about as cold as it gets out there, where you might have some frost on your windows. Their grass is green, the flowers are blooming, and the leaves are falling off the trees. We kind of enjoyed walking in the neighborhood and kicking leaves, but it's I can see why people complain about the weather here. I mean, to live in a place like that where it's nice year round. You never have to worry about snow or ice. I get the appeal, certainly.
Yeah, I do too. All right. But being in Minnesota, we have great high school sports, great high school activities, great educational system. We get to talk about that as well. So I'm glad you had a good time. Let me reintroduce the show. This is Preps Today with John Millea. He's John Millea from the MSHSL. You can find his written work at John's Journal at mshsl.org. You can hear spoken word artistry here at talknorth.com. We have the best sports lineup in town. John Millea, Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta, Kevin Gorg, John Krasinski on the Wolves, the Viking Update Show with myself and John Krasinski, Jeff Diamond on the Vikings, Dawn Mitchell's great interview show. We have Randy Shaver, Mike Grimm on the Gophers. Randy Shaver's high school football show is doing great. Outdoor content, check it all out. We do appreciate it. This show is and has been for a long time sponsored by Pizza Barn in Princeton. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. And let's get on to milestones, John.
Yeah, Jim, we got some coaches who in the last week have really reached some big milestones. Let's start with New Prague wrestling coach Dan Wagner. He got his 200th dual meet victory during the Trojan Invitational down in New Prague. He's the first wrestling coach in New Prague history to reach 200 wins, and that program has a great tradition in wrestling down at New Prague, and Dan is certainly a big part of that. Congrats to Dan Wagner at New Prague. Down at Goodhue, the girls basketball coach, Josh Weemy, he got his 400th career win. Goodhue, we know about Goodhue in girls basketball. They're the defending state champ in 1A. They're ranked number 1 right now in the state. They also won state titles in 2016 and 17. Josh is one of these super busy guys. He's the girls basketball coach. He's the athletic director. Those people are busy. Wonderful guy. I know him pretty well. He and I both enjoy the occasional Diet Mountain Dew. I've been known to deliver Diet Mountain Dew to him at state tournaments, which he always appreciates. And then down in Winona at Cotter High School, Pat Boland has earned his 700th girls basketball coaching win. He's also won more than 800 games as a softball coach. He's the winningest softball coach in Minnesota history. He ranks 4th all time in girls basketball coaching wins. I don't know of another coach in the state who can match that, in the top 4 in 2 different sports. one of them number one. And more than that, Pat's a great person. I spent time with Pat, writing about him in the past. Wonderful guy. So congrats to everybody on those milestones. That's a great testament to the great coaches we have in our state.
Yes, no doubt about it. All right, let's hear about high scoring hoops. It's that time of year.
Yeah, this is interesting, Jim. Basketball season just started. We've had some really interesting numbers put up. In their first 3 games of this season, the Montevideo boys basketball team has scored 94, 107, and 96 points. I don't know anything about that team. I'm going to have to do some research, but there may be a story there if they're scoring like that. And in a girls' basketball game, Alexandria set a state record. They scored 90 points in the first half against Sauk Rapids. I don't know how you do that. 90 in a game is a lot in high school, but they scored 90 in the first half. They took their foot off the pedal. The final score was 116-26. But 90, that's a state record for girls' basketball and a half. St. Paul Como Park held the previous record with 83. And the state record for points in a girls' basketball game is 129. That was set in 1977 by New York Mills, and they had a pretty good ball player named Janet Carvinen. So there's that. Here's my question on this with these high scoring games. How much does the shot clock have to do with this? We've used it for a couple of years now. It's everybody's used to it. And I haven't seen the data. I'm sure the average points in a game is up. It's not going to go down when you add a shot clock. So this is something I'm going to try to follow through the course of the season. There may be something here, whether it's the Montevideo boys or the Alexandria girls or just scoring in general. The season's just barely started, but we'll see what happens as we keep moving forward.
Interesting. Yeah, we knew the shot clock would keep people from just stalling, but it'd be interesting if it actually has spurred more offense as well.
Right. And another thing in Minnesota, we generally lead the nation in scoring in high school basketball because we play longer games. We have 2 18-minute halves. That's 36-minute games. Most places play 8-minute quarters. That's 32-minute games. USA Today or one of these outfits a few years ago did basically the data, and we led the nation in scoring in boys and girls basketball. And it's that extra 4 minutes. I love the 2 halves. It just makes the game flow better. And I don't know why that it isn't that way in every state. It's really a great way to have just have an even better game.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason to have 4 quarters is so you have more commercial breaks for the pros. You don't need it in high school.
No, you're not having TV timeouts in high school unless you're in the state tournament.
All right. Hey, thanks again to Aquarius Home Services. We are brought to you by the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We also want to thank our longtime sponsor, Jody Stay and Pizza Barn in Princeton.
You bet. It's December. We can unveil the pizza of the month. It's the Chili Con Carne pizza. It starts with the Barn's homemade crust, Chef Shorty's Chili Con Carne, which is made with brisket. This is not ground beef. Nothing against ground beef. This is brisket on top of that thing. Freshly shredded mozzarella cheddar blend. After they bake it, they drizzle it with sour cream and crumbled Fritos. That sounds fantastic. That's good for dine-in, carry-out, delivery, take and bake throughout the month. And remember the Pizza Barn's fantastic lunch buffet, just a huge variety of great choices every day, Monday through Friday from 11:30 to 1:30. This week, Chef Shorty has made his tasty chicken wild rice soup. He's making his famous roast beef sliders with his famous au jus sauce on Thursday. And on Friday this week, roasted chicken will be featured on the buffet. Thanks again to our friend Jody Stay and her crew at the Pizza Barn it's a great service. It's easy to get to in downtown Princeton. You'll enjoy it like you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, and if you're in the high school sports or activities realm, you'll appreciate the way Jody treats local kids, high school athletes, referees, officials, school officials. It's just it's the place to be.
You bet.
Let's thank a ref now, John.
Okay, we're thanking a ref. This is an NFL-themed Thank a Ref segment. The Chicago Bears are owned by the McCaskey family, descendants of George Halas. The chairman of the Chicago Bears board is George McCaskey. I saw a story on ESPN.com by Courtney Cronin She's a former Vikings beat reporter.
Yes,
she
I know
now
Courtney.
covers the Bears. Yeah, I knew that. I met her a couple times. She wrote about George McCaskey's other life as a high school sports official. He's been umpiring high school baseball for a long time. He got into it years ago when his kids were young. And the story kind of spells out that he did it because he knew there was a shortage of officials and he wanted kids to have these opportunities. Here's a quote from Chicago Bears president George McCaskey. Quote, "A lot of it's because of the criticism that officials in all sports have been in. A lot of guys are just deciding that it's not worth it." So he works like in a suburban area of Chicago. You know, when they have the meetings at home plate with the coaches, most of the coaches know him, but he just introduces himself as George. And some people, a lot of people in the stands don't realize he's the chairman of the board of the Chicago Bears, umpiring high school baseball. I love that story. If you go to ESPN.com, just search for George McCaskey. I bet you'll find that it's worth a read.
Yes, Courtney she did a good job here covering the Vikings. She does a really good job for ESPN. You see her around the horn sometimes as well. Her career has really taken off, so good for her as well. Let's wrap up today's show with the most valuable teammate.
Yeah, today we're honoring Morgan Mengel. She's a junior soccer player at Jordan High School. She didn't begin playing soccer till she was in 9th grade. Most kids are playing soccer in about 2nd grade. She picked up the sport in 9th grade, has put in long hours of work. After a sophomore season with limited time on the varsity field, Morgan started every match and played every minute of every game this fall. Her hard work, positive attitude, and commitment has been recognized by her teammates as she has been voted a captain for the 2025 season. Congrats to Morgan Mengel of Jordan on being named a most valuable teammate.
Well, I'm glad you made it back. I'm glad you didn't have delays that kept you from doing the podcast this week. That's myself.
That's right.
That's my selfish interest in all this.
Well, I've done them from my son's house out there before.
Yes, you have.
We skirted that this year. I'd rather do it from home.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you're back. Glad you're back safe. Good stuff as always. Looking forward to next week. Thanks to everyone who listens. Thanks to our sponsors, Jody Stay, Pete's Barn in Princeton, Aquarius Home Services. And keep listening to TalkNorth.com. We have a lot more good stuff coming for you.